Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We have Dr. Karine Talbot here today to present the ABC of Biosecurity. Currently serving as a Senior Director of Animal Health, Nutrition, and R&D at HyLife, based in Manitoba, Dr. Talbot earned her Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the University of Montreal in 2008. Over the years, Dr. Talbot has served as president of both the Canadian and Western Canadian Associations of Swine Veterinarians, and she is still serving on the board of directors as the Canadian Association of Swine Veterinarians since 2011. Dr. Talbot also actively contributes to industry working groups, addressing critical issues like disease preparedness, biosecurity, and animal welfare. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Talbot up to the front.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Okay, perfect. I'll try to figure this out. Okay, well, first, thanks to the organizer for inviting me here. First time I'm coming to the Iowa Swine Days, so really happy to be here. It's been a really good day so far. I'm also glad that I'm talking about biosecurity. Anyone that knows me, though it's a passion, there's many reasons for that, but I prefer to deal with prevention, so really like your speech, Dr. March, than actually disease. So we'll talk about biosecurity today, and in a little twist on it, and it's the ABC. I try to simplify it. Why ABC? Well, biosecurity is complicated. I wish it was as simple as ABC. But today we'll talk about A, access to your site or your farms, B, biocontainment, which is part of a biosecurity plan, it's a little twist on it, and then C for cleaning and disinfection. There's so much more we can say about biosecurity, but I'll try to just stick to those three letters today. Access. Why I picked, well, ABC, it fit well in my presentation, but why? It's probably the weakest link we have. Not probably, I know for sure, it's a weakest link we have on farms. Accessing the farms. I wish that's how my farm looked like. One door, I know who's coming in, I know who's coming out, and that's it. It is not the case. In our facility nowadays, there's a lot of traffic. Lots of traffic on site, lots of traffic coming in the barn, and lots of stuff being brought in. And that's what everything we need to know if we want to have a good biosecurity plan in place. So limiting the access point as much as you can from a site. So you go through, you do your survey, say, where are everything's and everyone coming into my site? That's homework number one. And then once you figure that out, you can start working on a plan. But I tell you, you'll be surprised if you do your homework well, how many other doors you did not expect are actually letting stuff enter your farm or people. The other one is the control. Know who's coming on site and understand the traffic. It's not that people are not welcome. We need to service our farms, the vets, the production manager. There's a lot of people, vaccination crew, washing crews. But you need to know what's the reason to be there, how often they come, what do they bring with them. Maintenance is one of my pet peeves. Electrician, maintenance, project managers. They need to fix our barn. They need to be there. We need them, but they need also for them to bring a lot of stuff with them. And that's why this becomes a challenge. So not only know who's coming on your site, but know what they're bringing with them. Where are they coming from is a big one too. We're in the pig industry, we ask downtime. Yes, that's fine, but downtime is it's not always enough. So knowing where they come from is a good one. The frequency, are they a daily visitor to your site, weekly, monthly? Those annual visitors are also the forgotten one. The guys that take care of the gas fitter comes once a year to inspect your generator. I don't know if that's similar. We have a few farms like that for us. He comes from the back door to check on the generator only once a year. Nobody think about this guy. He brings a lot of tools with him. I've met him a couple times on our farms. So those are the one people forget about, the one that only comes once in a while. They must not be a risk to your farm. Well, your people are usually very specialized and they visit many farms into one day, I can tell you that. So you want to be aware of it and put a plan in place. Access, so what does it look like? It's not a single door. We've seen the picture before, that's not how our farms look. So we define it, I use the Canadian way, control access zone. I think in the US you have your secure port, the perimeter buffer area. Same thing, it's the yard. So you need to know what's your traffic on your yard. It's a lesser risk in my mind, but still a risk. That is one step closer to what you have on farm. So your feed delivery, your propane guys, your dead stock pickup, they don't necessarily come inside your barn, but they can bring something to your site. So you need to know about them. The next one is what we call for us the RAS, Restricted Access Zone, the line of separation in secure port. That's getting closer to your pigs. That's where the pigs are actually raised. And then for us, we have the TAZ. We're starting to talk more about the TAZ, the transition access zone. Because how do you go from the CAS to the RAS? It's through your TAZ, your Danish entry, your showers, your lunch pass-through window, for example. So you have somewhat a way to enter people or supply room, something to enter from the CAS to your RAS in a safe manner. I like those maps. I do encourage every producer to do them as part of a biosecurity plan, an emergency plan. And again, when you do that, that's when you figure out all the doors you have, all the access you have. One-way traffic. So let's talk about showers and Danish entry. Everybody's familiar with that, but they're not all equal in the way they're designed. What you want is a one-way walk-through. No crossing path, and it has to be properly designed to allow that, to allow the staff, the visitor to do it. You want it clearly labeled and clearly delimited. So I work for a big company, didn't present HyLife today, but I work for a very large swine company. We have quite a few sites, over 130. Everything is integrated, that's fine, but even within that, we have different layout of sites. So it sounds easy to say, well, all the showers are created equal. That's true, they're all kind of similar, but there always is a bit of difference. And that causes confusion. So you need to have very clear label. And what I explain to the staff now is, because the employees wonder sometimes, why do you put so many posters or color code? Now we're into the red, yellow, green. We're starting to do more of that. Why? It's not for the employee actually, because we can train the employees, they're there every day, they figure it out, they're good with their protocol. It's for all the visitors that come on site that also visit 100 other barns that are slightly different. So you want something that is standardized as much as possible so people don't do mistake because they just don't understand your biosecurity. The changing zone and separating the foot traffic is very important. And I'm a strong believer in barrier, physical barrier. A line on the ground will not stop anything, I'm sorry. It's too easy to step over by mistake or just ignoring it. So you want to have physical barrier. And 1, 2, 3 is even better than nothing. The changing zone, so here, see if I can, maybe not. That picture there, it's the farm did that on their own. So the door you see there is the door to the shower. Why would we put a foot barrier in front of a shower? What was happening is when you opened that door, it was not clear where you had to stop walking in. People knew they had to take their shoes off before going into the shower, but where exactly? So what happened? Some people came in, took their shoes off, and then walk into the shower. Well, now you just walk where the next person is going to or the previous person walked to. So that's why we'd have barrier like that, even in front of the shower. Now you might say, why would you care? You're going to take a shower. I agree with you, except the world is not perfect. The closer you get to the pigs with the potential virus, one day it will happen where that virus will go in. I'm a strong believer in layers. The more layers you have, the less chance you have to get to the pigs. The Swiss cheese example, we use that a lot in our training at HyLife. Eventually, disease will go through every layers you have, but the more you have, the less chance it will happen, and it does work. This one is a poster. It's a typical shower through, so we use zone also. I said the color as well. The first one is where you take your shoes off, you take your jackets off. As you step over the barrier, you take your shoes off. Then you get undressed, that's zone 2. Zone 3 is your shower, and then zone 4 is where you get dressed. You're still not seeing the pigs there. The pigs are much further than that. Now you have to go into an office, and then you have to open the door of the barn, put your boots, and see the pigs. There's many layers there to protect us. Those are just pictures to inspire people, but we are now having, even in our farms, we do 2 boot walls. Why 2, you would say? So look at that picture there. I don't know if it's clear. There's one boot wall there. That's a nursery farm. And then across that wall there, there's another boot wall. So we called them double Danish entry. They're not really double. But again, it was confusing. For what we realized is when we were looking at people, talking to them, the way they were entering farms, we did not give them the right tool to change properly. So imagine you're coming and it's winter, minus 30 in Manitoba. You have your jacket, you have your boots, you have your blue clothes. For us, blue is outside, gray is inside. And now you're supposed to step out of your shoes, step over the bench, but also undress. Don't touch the floor, because that's where the viruses are. You're supposed to do all of that balancing on one foot, not touching anything. I can guarantee you it almost never happened. And you know, for me, I've been pregnant 4 times. When I was heavy pregnant, I was still visiting farm. And that's when suddenly it hit you. It's like, whoa, this thing is impossible to do. I could not put socks on. And then you start questioning people, how are you doing what I'm asking you to do? And then you realize they will not tell the vet, but they're not doing it properly. So that's very important. That's why we put a group together. We really brainstorm and say, how can we make it easier? So now it's a step program or protocol. So you take your jacket off, you take your shoes as you step over the bench, and you can sit if you prefer. Now you have a zone where you can undress. You can also sit if you need to. And then that's where we allow socks to be taken off. You undress your blue clothes. As you step over the next bench, that's when you put your socks on. And then you have an area you can wash your hands and dress properly. Now we gave people the room to properly change, and don't hope that they will stand on 1 foot and not touch anything. This is just one of our farms that came up after hearing presentation of what we were doing. They loved the idea, so they came up with their own little two-wall system. Way much room to, that's a finishing barn. They don't have a lot of room, but they came up with this. Same principle, 2 area. One, they take their boots off as they step over that middle area. Now they can undress, then they step over the next bench, and you can see in the back the gray clothes there. And then they go see the pigs. Okay, access. Another important thing is we ask people to sign in sheet. So the picture you're seeing there, there's technology now, and that's what I want to encourage everybody to use technology nowadays to simplify our life. The sheet there is an actual sheet from one of the traceback we had to do. I think the barn broke with PED years ago. The vets, what had happened, we asked a lot of questions, and we asked to see the sign-in sheet. That's impossible to read. We can barely see who was there and when, and it doesn't make sense. They run out of room at one point. At the top, you can see the date, September 1621, right on top, August 6, 2020. There's a year in between. It doesn't make sense. We could not figure anything out of that sheet that was useful for us. But now there's technology that can actually do digital record, and that's very helpful. So there's software that will geofence the farm, and all visitors, all trucks, all trailers, anything you put a GPS on will now be recorded. That's a time saver, because I do agree also, when it comes to an outbreak, we do not have time. The every minute count. That's what it looks like. It's a virtual geofence, so it's not a real fence around a farm, it's virtual, but anything that has a GPS. So for us, all our fleet, our livestock truck, our feed truck, our dead stock truck, our maintenance truck, everything has GPS already. So we just had to make sure it was talking to this software, and then every visit is recorded. For people, we went with the phone app, so you download the app on your phone, and then anytime you come onto a geofence, you get detected. On and off the premise, nothing in between for confidentiality. That helps a lot, because in contact tracing or making sure people don't breach protocol or have a log of your visitors, that's how you do it. Okay, since we're in access, I could go on and on forever, but don't forget the other things that comes into your farm. Your lunch box, all the people's lunch, where those containers have been, has the bag been on the floor of their vehicles. So ideally, you don't want any of that to come inside the barn. So we also have pass-through window designed to enter lunch, where everybody takes their stuff out, so it's passed into a window. Nothing that was outside come inside. The supplies, the fumigation room. Now, one thing I'm seeing too is we have a lot of fumigation room on our sow barn, that's fine, but when you bring large equipment, that's another one that you have to ask a lot of questions as a veterinarian to really know what's going on farm. And it's usually when I'm there looking at people doing something that I realize whatever we wrote on that protocol is actually not followed, but for a good reason, they could not follow the protocol. If you're bringing in a very large piece of equipment, chances are it won't fit in your fumigation room. So now I'm not saying don't do it. Ideally, yeah, don't do it. But we need to bring stuff in. So it's at least be aware of it and putting a protocol in place that you will disinfect large equipment. Don't just overlook it because it's not written in the protocol and you don't know what to do. So we really teach our people to stop and think, and if you're not sure, call. We will get a safe way of doing it. The garbage one I put there because in one of our outbreak a couple years ago, we found a very big weakness on a garbage room. Never thought of it. You're thinking garbage goes out, should be no big deal. But maybe that's where you have a crossover between outside and inside. In this case, it was a big sow farm. They would put garbage into a room. At the end of the day, someone would come from outside, walk into that room, pick up the garbage, put it in the truck. Both inside the barn and outside were walking into that room with no one disinfecting it. So when I mean every door, make sure you open every door, you ask questions about every door, and you know very well what's coming in and out, so you can at least put a plan in place. Okay, done with A, let's go to B, biocontainment. What does that to do with biosecurity? Well, it is definitely, in my mind, part of biosecurity. So when we talk about biosecurity, most people they will have bioexclusion in mind. Everything you do to prevent disease from coming in. We're all familiar with that. We shower in, Danish entry, supplies, disinfection. Biocontainment is everything you do to prevent disease from coming out of your barn. You do not want to share it with your other site, with your other barns on site, with your neighbors. And that is a very important one, I think, for everyone to understand, because that's how we start now to stop the spread of disease. Not only because they will happen. We don't want disease in the barns. Once in a while, they do come in. And if you don't have a biocontainment plan in place, they will just spread further, infect more farms. And then biomanagement would be your internal biosecurity. A good example would be Meg Rebel in sow barn. So what does it mean, biocontainment? I'll give some example. It's not everything we do. We do way more about biocontainment, but just some example. The picture there is a typical finishing site. That's a 10,000 head, 5 barns. The little building there, that's where we come in and we shower there, and then you put your blue clothes. Every barn for us, we see it as a bubble. There's a change of clothes. There's not a shower in every barn. That would be a bit excessive. But so we shower on site, and then you walk to the barn, and then you change. We have a Danish entry in every barn. Our goal is if a disease happens at that site, PD comes in, PRRS comes in, it will stay in one barn, and it will not spread to the 10,000 pigs. And that's very important. People and equipment, we try to make sure everybody understands that. We have basic tools in every single barn. We're now having those shadow boards. We work with engineer, part of our teams on continuous improvement. Those tools are always missing. Anyone here in the farms that can never find those tools? That was a big debate for us. The maintenance comes in, cannot find the tools. So we work with shadow boards, so making sure that all the basic stuff is there so you don't have to bring it in with you from barn to barn. Make it simple for the staff. You need to have some level of biocontainment before an outbreak. Sometimes we hear biocontainment after. The barn was found with PRRS, the barn was found with PD, we place biocontainment. We stop all movement. That's fine, that needs to be done, but it's too late in most of the case. You always know about a disease once it's too late. If you're lucky, it's going to be something like PD, maybe a couple days, maybe 2 weeks at most. It might be PRRS, it can take more weeks, or something like myco that can come in a sow barn, and you don't know right away. So you have to have some kind of biocontainment in place ahead of time, so you're not spreading whatever might come your way everywhere. So what does that mean? You need to not only minimize what's coming in, but minimize what's coming out. And if it needs to come out, it needs to be disinfected. That's why we shower out of a barn nowadays. We don't want to smell like pigs, that's true, but that's also why you need to shower out. If you're a service provider and you're visiting a few barns, if you're a vet, you're visiting a few barns, you don't want your vehicle also to become the nest for bacteria and virus, and then you go from site to site. So you need to disinfect everything coming out, you need to shower out, and you don't bring that with you. We also train our staff to think, when you go into a farm, think it's clean. It's the status we're giving you, PRRS negative, myco negative. But when you come out of a site, just assume it's dirty. Just assume it has PD. Assume it has PRRS. Because you don't know. People would like to know all the time and say, well, is that site PRRS negative, myco negative, PD negative? My answer is always, as far as I know, yes, but that was like the last results were 2 weeks ago. So you never know until it's too late. Also consider where the things are going, where the people are going after. What I mean by that is not only in your biosecurity plan, consider the downtime because of what you're trying to protect going in, but also the downtime of what you're trying to protect going out. Another example would be livestock trailers. The reuse, the split loads probably happen here too. So for us to maximize, sometimes we will ship 100 pigs from one finishing, and then you want to complete the load with another 100 pigs for efficacy. You don't want to send a half trailer to the plant. Well, whenever you do that, you're taking a big chance on your biosecurity. You're assuming, we try to match health status when we do that. You're assuming they have the same health status at the time you take that decision, but they might not. Maybe finishing A is currently breaking with PD, and now you just expose finishing B. So whenever you said, yes, we will do a split load, what's in the back of your mind should be, I'm okay if ever I break with PD that those 2 barns are going down. That's how we see it. If you're willing to take that risk, then go ahead. But that's a different decision. Maybe you'll say, oh, actually, I'm not willing for that finishing, that second finishing to break. Maybe it's too close to a sow barn. Maybe you need to change the order. And then the pigs. The pigs, wherever we place them, we have to consider that's a high risk. Sounds funny to say, that's what we do, moving pigs all over the place. It's true, but again, we need to think of that risk. If we're moving pigs from province to province, from state to state, from an area that is high risk for PD or PRRS into an area that is low risk for PD and PRRS, is that very wise? And that's really challenging a lot of the thing we do. I can tell you for HyLife, it took one PD outbreak for us to realize our model was not very sustainable. We did not want to spread disease outside the southeast. So what we do, it took a few years, but really to adjust your system, your production. So now what we have is bubble of production. We will have the West Saskatchewan for us. The pigs stay there. Then you have the Western Manitoba, pigs stay there. And we try to never move pigs east to west for us, because east is where it's very dense. It's like Iowa, we have a lot of pigs finishing, it's mycopositive. That's where PD usually happen. So we really try never to move pigs from east to west. And even west to east, only in desperate case, usually it's cleaner to dirtier, health-wise. But thinking of that ahead of time. Because if in peacetime, we're like, oh, it's fine. We don't have any disease, so why don't we do it? Well, yeah, we did that a few times, and we brought PD where we didn't want it a few times too, even if you do same-day testing. So, what else in biocontainment? A big one for us was the parking. Where do you park that vehicles? And we implement CAS, so Control Access Zone, a CAS parking. So what does it mean? And you're looking at lime. The white stuff there, it's lime, hydrated lime, dry on a driveway. So when PD happens, and I talk a lot about PD, that's my disease of interest, I guess. I don't deal with a lot of PRRS, fortunately, but PD has been a beast, something we're really battling. But it's better now, but that's why I refer a lot to PD. So if a barn breaks with PD, right away you do biocontainment. We would put lime on the driveway to disinfect the tires of the vehicles coming on site. And we were doing it only when the site broke. And then suddenly we say, well, let's do this everything in 5 kilometers. But again, you're always too late. That's what happened many times. By the time we knew we had PD, pigs had moved, something else happened, and another site would break. Then we went into our season. For us, PD season is in summer, so it's usually from April to October. So we start implementing CAS line, where people park really far from the barn from April to October. Why do we park far from the barn? Well, first, to minimize traffic on site. We don't want, in a sow barn, 6,000 people, you can have 20 vehicles there just for the staff. We didn't want too much traffic during those high disease season. The other reason is biocontainment. When a barn breaks with PD, and I've done enough sampling around, everything is positive outside. Your feed bin, your propane tank, every vehicle parked along that barn is going to be PD positive, inside and outside. We know that. So if your staff, 20 vehicles are parked along the barn, what do you think happened when they go back home, see their friends? They may carpool also with other people from the industry. They go everywhere, and now we spread virus everywhere. Now, if you have great biosecurity on all your site, that virus should never make it back into a barn, in theory. But again, you want to minimize your chance of that happening. So for us now, we're going into permanent CAS. Couple PD season later, we had 3 big waves of PD in Manitoba. And now what we're doing at HyLife is we're investing in what we call permanent CAS. We're actually building a parking lot with plug-in, because it's really cold in winter and we need to plug vehicle. So we're building a parking lot where the staff can actually park their vehicle, and then there's a little shed where they can actually change boots before they walk to the barn. Everyone must follow that park there, unless you are a feed truck, a livestock, because you need to get closer, or your maintenance bringing a very large piece of equipment. Otherwise, everyone park at that parking spot and walk to work. This is what a shed looks like. So it's it's not very big stop sign. It's a door lock, but it's really just a change of boots. Now we're going to the next level, continuous improvement. We're even starting to implement full change of clothes into those sheds. Again, it's because what we realize is in winter, we all have big winter jackets. Those are really hard to wash. So you go into a farm, and that's biocontainment again. Those farms have no issue as we speak. But if one breaks, now let's say I'm a vet, I go to that farm, I visit the pigs, everything looks good. But then my big winter jackets, I go to 2 other farms maybe that day, some more the next day. At minus 30, virus will survive on my jackets, sorry. And then we're tracking it from barn to barn. It's a possibility that is too high for us. That's a risk we don't want to take anymore. Okay, the last letter of my ABC. We talk about access, biocontainment, now cleaning and disinfection of barns. Why is it so important as part of a biosecurity plan? Because you don't want to drag a disease you had from batch to batch. A lot of our barns, nursery finishing, are all in, all out. Why would we accept that we finish a batch with a disease like PD or PRRS? Unless it's coming from the sow barn, that's different. But let's say something happened during the batch and you did break with PRRS or you did break with PD at the end of the batch. Why would you accept that your new pigs coming in will break again? And even to control normal production disease, a bit of strep and glassers, we need to wash those barns properly, and it can be done. So what you want to do is having a good protocols, having all the steps. For us, we use a lot of custom washer for our finishing, and our staff prepare the barn for the custom washer. I'm going to talk more about the areas that are forgotten, part of the washing, because so you do soak, fire hose, drain the pits, empty the feeders. That's kind of makes sense. It has to be done properly. We need to empty that dead stock room. I've seen it where the barn is spotless, but then they left the dead pigs because just didn't match the dead stock pickup. Well, now you just messed up with your beautiful washing you just did as you have a dead pigs into your barn when the new pigs come in. Also, the garbage needs to be removed from batch to batch. You don't want to carry over that. And then washing and removing the clothes also. Those are areas we see as weakness when we do biosecurity audit or disease outbreak. When you wash, you need to use soap and disinfectant. But about the soap, why is it so important? In my mind, the soap does probably 90 to 95% of the job, more even than disinfectant. Why is that? Have you ever tried to wash very greasy dishes with just cold water and no soap? It's really hard. You have to scrub. I do a lot of camping, so sometimes I end up having to wash dishes in cold water with no soap. You have to scrub quite a bit. We don't have that scrubbing effect in our farm. We pressure wash, that's not scrubbing. So you really want hot water and a good soap that will help the grease. And now it makes it possible to achieve the same results. If you don't have hot water, if you don't have the soap, it will be very difficult. All organic matter must be removed. And that's why I say the soap probably does 90% of the job. Because if you have organic matter left there, the disinfectant will not be effective. You cannot cover it with enough disinfectant if you have fecal material left there to disinfect it. So that's a very important part. You don't want to skip on the soap. And then don't forget your tools and equipment. Again, a weakness we see. The barn has been well washed, that's fine, but what about your paddle? What about your feed carts? What about your fan covers? All of that needs to be done. What's used to wash really doesn't matter to me. What you want is a good foam that will stay. So whichever product, whichever equipment, there is a foam gun, you can have the bottle mounted, you can have the backpack, you can have the cart. There's even robot now that helps to pressure wash barns. It doesn't matter at the end what needs to, it's a good coat of bubble, of foam that will stick there, and then you can degrease it and pressure wash. Disinfection is the last step. That's what will bring you to a very clean barn, but you need to have done a good soap before. When you get to disinfection, it has to be an approved disinfectant at the right concentration. That one you apply with cold water, and you want proper contact time. And again, I'm in a cold area. The barns are fortunately above zero, but we get to very low temperature in winter when we wash. So that's something you have to take into account. Even more important for trailers, to have the proper contact time on a trailer after you disinfect. So what happens is they wash, they disinfect the trailer, and then if they're too quick and put it right outside, everything freezes. Your disinfectant did not have the right contact time. So something to keep in mind, the temperature at which you apply the disinfectant actually matter. We don't rinse, but you don't want any pool of disinfectant water anywhere because that's toxic to the pig. So mostly the feeders needs to be drained properly. And then drying time if you have that luxury. I call it luxury because that's usually what we slash first when we're in a rush. Pigs must come in. Well, we won't dry the farm. We'll do, and farrowing rooms as well. Sow has to come in. So it's important to include it in a good washing disinfection plan. Nursery that has been clean in this pictures, all feeders taken out, flipped, so we drain it, and everything is ready to put back together before the new pigs come in. And an inspection, because it's good to have a good protocol in place, have the right people doing it, you've explained everything, but if you don't regularly inspect it, you don't know if it's well done all the time. So for us, we do an inspection after every batch. Actually, so after every time it's washed and it goes into the new batch starting. So if the batch don't go very well, we go back to the inspection sheet as well. It's a good feedback. Like I say, we use third party in this case to wash our barn, so we also provide feedback on the quality of the wash. If it's really bad, then they have to come back and rewash. Sometimes it's just, hey, we've seen that sometimes you forget I don't know, certain gates, or we see a pattern in what they forget, we touch base with them. Lime. I cannot talk about washing and disinfection without talking about lime. We're a big user of lime. You've seen the driveways now where we put dry lime. We use lime to, whenever we have a disease outbreak like PED, we will use lime to disinfect that barn properly. It's kind of we still wash, we still disinfect with liquid disinfectant, but then we'll finish up with lime. I like whitewash. It's like painting. You can visually see it. You can see the area that we're missed or not. As a vet, I do inspection of those farms. It's much easier than a wet disinfectant unless I'm there when they're applying disinfectant. If I go a few hours later, I don't see it. This lime, I will see it. We lime everything from boots to carts whenever we do a depop. It's alkaline, so it brings the pH very, very high. And you have to be very careful. It's very caustic. You have to wear the proper PPE. Other use that we have for lime, so we use it as a dry disinfection. The picture you have there, we do that in an outbreak situation. We were applying it in front of the door, so a couple goals of that. We're hoping that we will disinfect the boots wherever it is coming in. I can tell you it's a really good training tool as well, because if people step over that bench without taking their boots off, you see it right away. So I've used that as a training for people to show, hey, somebody stepped in the wrong place here. We've now moved more to those containers, because what happened with this, as soon as it rained or there's a lot of wind, you had to reapply, so it became a daily job almost. With those containers now, we keep the lime dry, and we just step into the container, then step into the farm. So that is now not anymore a disease outbreak situation. That's something we do every day at our farms. And then the driveway, we do that, like I said, from spring to fall. Every farm, if you look at a Google map of Manitoba, you'll see a lot of white on driveways. That's what it is. It works well to disinfect the tires of any vehicles coming in. Okay, I talked a lot about biosecurity. Does it work? Is it worth it to do it? So, yes, it is. I'm 100% convinced, and I hope everybody is in the swine industry. But how do you measure it? Because to really track progress or say we're doing better than we were last year, I get that question a lot. We invest a lot of time and money on biosecurity. How are we doing? Well, the number one is you have no disease. So for us, we have the main goal at the company is 0 disease outbreak anywhere. Sow nursery finisher, no disease outbreak in a year. That's our main goal. I haven't quite got there yet, but we're making lots of progress. We track every disease, mycoplasma, PRRS, PD, Delta. Whatever is new that comes in, it goes against us. That's what but if everything goes well and your biosecurity is top notch, you're not breaking. Are you good or are you just lucky? You might be just lucky, depending the area you're in. What I like also with biocontainment, so that's the second one, if you do break, and we do track that, if you do break, mistake happen, how many other sites have you infected? That's another way of measuring success. Okay, we had a oops, this barn broke with PED, but that's only one barn, and it stopped there. Well, that's kind of success. So I'll give an example. I've had 3 outbreaks of PED, Delta, and PED in the last year, and that's it. All 3, I call them success. We did break, we found out why in all 3 cases, but it never spread. So I'll share with you one of the cases. This is a PED. That was late November last year. In 24, Manitoba had only 1 case. That's the one. And that was an unfortunate incident. So there was work done at the lagoon. In Manitoba, we're a strong believer that those lagoons stay positive for a long time. I'm a believer of at least 3 years it stay positive. In this case, it was 1 year and 8 months after the last PED pigs were placed there. So we had almost 2 years of no PED at that site. There was some work done at the lagoon with a tractor, and after the tractor was done, because it had messed up with the yard, it went and spread new gravel in the yard. At the same time it was doing that, the staff happened to walk from barn 2 to 1. They always start in barn 1, but that day they had visitor, they started in barn 2. What's interesting too in Manitoba is we do surveillance for PED. We're very aggressive on surveillance. Every week, doesn't matter if you have clinical signs or not, sow nursery and finishing in my system are all tested every week. In this case, it's a finishing barn on a Friday schedule, so we collect Friday, we have results Monday. It's surveillance, we're not in a rush, there's no clinical signs. We got the phone call from the lab on Monday telling us you have PED in your system. And I was like, no, it's been years since I had PED. So we got a confirmation, they rerun the PCR, and it was truly PED. So it was caught on surveillance. Within 20 hours, those samples were taken from when it got exposed. And we put that site under more strict biocontainment within 4 days of finding it positive. What's also amazing is the staff there always, like I said, always store from 1 to 2. So on Friday, they did 1 to 2. One was positive, but nobody knew. Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 2. So they went from the positive barn to the negative barn 4 days in a row until we called them and say, your barn 1 is positive. Now we reverted it. And the staff was also taking care of other barns. So as soon as we knew, then we stopped. The staff only take care of one barn, and they start visiting barn 2 first, then barn 1. Success story, this PD never moved. It stayed in that one barn. This is the entrance they have to work with. So nothing really fancy. That's probably how it got into. We don't have a proper shower through. We know it's a weakness. Some of our finishing are still set up like that. The only thing is a bench where they have to change their boots. And then the shower is actually in the back. So you have to go through the office, almost to the pigs to take a shower. Back in the days when that barn was built, it was not with Biosecurity in mind. This is the area. So this is the most pig dense area in Manitoba. And that happened to be the case, so I was very nervous when we found out this barn was positive, because this is our typical PD outbreak area. There was 18 premises within 5 kilometers, and 8 of those were HyLife farms, and 2 of those were sow barns. So we got really, really nervous that, oh, that's it, we're starting a new wave of outbreaks in the southeast. But no, it did not. We maintained it negative. And those pigs were not on site for a week or 2, they were on site for 9 weeks. For 9 weeks, we had PD in one barn, and we never spread it. And those farms are only 300 feet apart. So that's pretty impressive. So it does work. So this is an example where Biosecurity failed us. The virus was actually brought in between the work with the lagoon and the staff walking in, but biocontainment did work. And even before the staff knew it, they did not bring it to barn 2, because they do change clothes between each barn every day. So, in summary, if we want to summarize this presentation on Biosecurity and ABC, if you know your access barn and you put a strong Biosecurity plan in place for each of those access and everybody and everything coming in, you do not only bioexclusion, but also you think about biocontainment ahead of an outbreak, and then your biomanagement, and you do proper cleaning, disinfection, you should have hopefully no disease, but if you do have disease, you'll stop the spread of those diseases. Because I think that's maybe the part we're missing. We're focusing a lot on biosecurity, which is great, but oops, when it happens, we lose control. We need to be stronger with that. That's it. Any question?
I can be loud. What are you doing with mortalities? Are you doing a lot of composting or rendering? That's a huge risk.
It is a huge risk. So we do rendering, but we have our own little route of rendering. So for what it is, like a sow barn, a nursery, and a big finishing site, like I saw the picture of the 5, they'll have their own trailer, so they pick up their own deads, and then that trailer get put at the end of the CAS line, and then a driver pick it up, bringing to a central depot, HyLife only, get dropped there, get washed, disinfect the trailer, and goes back. So the trailer only belonged to that farm. So that's good.
So picks up clean, hauls, gets washed and disinfected before returning before the next pickup.
Exactly, and only to that farm. It doesn't go from barn to barn. Now, we do still have some for smaller site that goes from barn to barn. They are my nightmare. Like I say, with Biosecurity, we do accept some risk. We're slowly chopping at every risk one at a time. We have a long list. We don't have too many third-party rendering, but out west I do. In those cases, what we try is the bin has to be outside the CAS, as far as we can from the barn, outside of what we call our CAS, and with a different access. So that would be the ultimate. So we do have normal, like third-party rendering, but really far from the barn. The barn comes from the back, drop the deads. The rendering comes from the front.
For your case study there, I thought you said you knew how it got in the barn too, from the repairs done in the lagoon, but that, if I heard you right, that site has been negative for almost 2 years, you said?
Yep.
So how did it get to the lagoon? I didn't know.
So the tractor worked on the lagoon, the bucket, did some work there, and then once it was done, he spread gravel to fix the yard, and then the staff walk from barn 2 to 1, so we walk into that gravel that was now spread with the bucket of the tractor, and then we're assuming the staff did not do a proper Danish entry with the limitation we had. The bucket of the tractor, we went and tracked it down once we knew and all of that the week after, and it was positive for PD. I am convinced, yes. This is not the unique case. I know, I would say, for me, under 3 years, you're at risk big time. Those lagoons stay positive. Whenever we pump them, we test them. I don't do bioassay like this. This was unfortunate, but we learned from it. But I have a couple examples where we blow up site from pumping.
Canada, it's cold.
It's cold, yes.